Welcome into the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. Today we're looking at all our 2025 season predictions. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome on in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode 9 of the 2025 AFL season. We're only a couple weeks away now from the official season kicking off with opening round. We're, at time of recording, 7 days away. When this goes out, it'll be about 6 days until the season starts officially. We're most of the way through, pre-season, I guess. We've had all the match sim games. I reviewed them in the last episode of the podcast, so go check that out. We also have the official pre-season games, which I think we've had 4 out of the 9, so there's still quite a few to go of them. Or have we had 5? Anyway, we're working our way through them, so next episode on Monday, we'll have a review of all of those games as well. So make sure you like, comment, and hit that subscribe button so you're back here for the next one. And then next week, we're reviewing proper AFL season games. They kick off on next Thursday night. So make sure you stick around and get all the previews for all of those games. Without any further ado, let's have a chat about what today's episode is. We're going to be having a look at all my predictions for the season. We've done a couple episodes already where we kind of look at some predictions. But today we're going to be fully looking at all of our official predictions. These are our final time predictions for the season. Will we be right? Will we be wrong? Will we be wrong? I missed my words there. Yeah. Stick around, find out. Make sure you jump in the comments and let me know what you think will happen in 2025. It's sure to be an absolute banger of a season. So let's jump into it and have a look at what we've got. First off, we're going to start with my ladder predictions for the year. This was tough. I'm not going to lie to you guys. This was tough. In all honesty, I think I can see 15. The top 15 teams there I can see playing finals this year. It's hard to come up with the teams that are going to improve and the teams that are going to go down because it is a very close competition and it's going to come down to a lot of things like injuries, just timing of luck and whatnot as well. North Melbourne, West Coast, I don't think I can see playing finals, but I can certainly see them finishing above 16 or 17. I can see them being more level with probably 10 through 15. And then 18, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. So let's start at the top. At the moment, I'm on the Geelong bandwagon. I'm not 100% sure why. They haven't looked spectacular through the pre-season, if we're being honest. But I just have so much faith in them. What they did last year when people perhaps didn't expect so much from them last year going into the season. They've certainly got the job done most of the way through. Yeah, they looked a bit scratchy at times, but overall they were really, really consistent and finished top 4. They went on and nearly made it to the grand final, which they would have been hard to beat in. Brisbane, obviously the reigning premiers. It's a no-brainer, really. They haven't got worse. Yes, Joe Danaher's left, but they've added some midfield depth. They should be able to cover the forward work of Joe Danaher. The backup ruck might be a little bit of an interesting one because he obviously did go and support Oscar McInerney in the ruck, so that one will be slightly harder to, I think, cover. But at the same time, I don't see them having an issue with it, so expect a big season from them. Fremantle, expected by many to be the big improvers. Their list is incredible. Their midfield is so strong. Their tall forwards are incredible. They've got some good small forwards. They've got some good running backmen. So they pretty much have a really good list across the board. They've got no excuses in my eyes. So maybe a better season from them. They obviously should have played finals last year. They just let themselves down over the last month. Collingwood next. They won the Premiership 2 years ago. They've recruited Dan Houston. it's a season that could go one of two ways. It could be a disaster for them, and they get off to a bad start like they did last year, and they just kind of teeter away. Or it could be a good season for them where they absolutely just find everything going their way and have a dominant season. Hawthorn, obviously they were really good last year, the surprise packet. I don't know if they are one of the best teams in the competition. They're certainly a team that is capable of winning every day. So they've got to be considered. They could finish anywhere from top of the ladder down to maybe 10 or so. But I've got them fifth. I think we'll see them in finals, and if they're in form going into finals, watch out because they will be hard to beat. Carlton, they've dropped off on my predictions. All pre-season, they've been my minor premiership team. They're just having injury concerns across the board. There's just a few things that are concerning me. They've still got one of the easier schedules on the list of AFL teams this year, but I just am falling off them a little bit. I still think they should play finals. I mean, sixth on the ladder is not bad. It could be a disaster of a season though, where they finish outside the top 8, depending what happens with their injuries. If they stop getting injuries, they might be fine. GWS 7th. They have some absolute top-end talent that is incredible. If Jesse Hogan has a season like he did last year, then I fully expect them to do at least top 6 or 7. If they can get Toby Green back to his best. Obviously, their midfield's really strong, their forward line's strong, their back line, their key backs are insanely good. So they've just got really good talent across the board. So they're almost too good to fail. But at the same time, we haven't seen them take that next step yet. So I'm still a little bit hesitant on them. And there were points last year where they looked like they weren't even going to play finals. Yes, they finished the season pretty well, got back into the top 4. But with about 10 weeks to go, I actually had them missing the 8 because I was just concerned about how they were playing football. But they turned that around. So I guess what I'm saying is they should finish top 8. Whether they do or not, we'll see. I've got Sydney in 8. Mainly, once again, another team that's just too good not to play finals. You'd think their midfield is so strong. If they stay fit and firing, it's hard to see a reason why they wouldn't be in the 8. You look at their last 4 seasons and they went grand final down to elimination final loss, grand final down to elimination loss. Oh no, they haven't gone to an elimination final loss yet. But if they follow that plan, or that system, that's where they'll be again. I think there's a couple concerns for their team, mainly their forward line, their tall forwards and their tall backs. I just don't think they're quite at the level of some of the other teams. Yes, their midfield is one of the best in the competition. Yes, they've got some really, really good small forwards. They've got some good running backmen. But, yeah, just the key positions, I feel like they're lacking on other teams. In 9th, I've got Adelaide. This is a team that certainly could play finals. At their best, they will be playing finals. I had high hopes on them last season and they let me down. Maybe not as confident this year, but at the same time, they have some absolute guns. Dawson will be back to his best. He was still really good last year, but I don't think he was at his best. Saligo looks like he's gone to another level, so he'll be huge in that midfield for them. Their forward line's pretty solid. Their back line's really good. If Rankin can stay fit and healthy for the year, stay on the park, that'll be huge for them as well, because he is someone that could average you like 20 plus touches and a couple goals a game, which would be huge in Adelaide's prospects of making the finals. 10th is Gold Coast. I have them as an outsider to make the finals this year. They haven't ever played finals football. They need to get there, surely at some point. Is this the year? It's going to be tough because it's a tight competition, but if they can stay fit and healthy, there's certainly a chance. I wouldn't be writing them off just yet. Yeah, we'll see how they go. they've strengthened up their team a little bit. Obviously, they've got a couple half-back flankers into their team, which just allows maybe some other players to play different roles, which could really help them in a lot of ways. Their forward line's pretty solid. Their midfield's really strong. So they're definitely a good team. They're just going to need to have their best team on the park regularly. If they can play at home as well as they did last year and just improve their away form, they'll definitely play finals. But whether that will happen or not, I'm not so sure. Port Adelaide. What do we say about the power? This is a team that finished top 4 last year, and in all honesty, they could finish top 4 again this year. They are a home and away team for sure, or they have been over the last 10 years. They've finished towards the top regularly and never really gone on with it in finals, and last year was another case of that. They haven't got worse. They haven't, but have they got better? I also don't know. I expect a big season from Horn Francis. I expect... look, it's a tight competition, and it's going to come down to injuries. But I just don't have as much faith in this Port Adelaide team this year as I do in others. So I've dropped them down to 11th, which is perhaps a little bit harsh, but at the same time, it's hard to fit 15 teams into 8 spots. So that's where they are. The Bombers are next. 12. Look, they're a team, once again, I can see them playing finals. I think their best is certainly good enough. They've had a really good pre-season. Their pressure looks like it's right up, which if they can maintain that throughout the season, watch out. They're going to be a real improver. Once again, just like I said, it's hard to get all these teams into 8 spots, but I certainly wouldn't be giving up faith if I was a Bombers supporter. Their pre-season, as I said, has been good. They've got some good additions into this team over the last couple of years. Their forward line's starting to look all right. Their midfield's solid enough. So it's going to come down to a lot of things, but certainly don't give up the faith. Melbourne, look, injuries really curtailed their season last year. If they have a fit and firing Clayton Oliver for the whole season, obviously he did play pretty much all season last year, but he didn't quite seem his old self. If he can get back to his old self, Petrarca back on the field all season, Gorney have another good season, they're certainly going to be good enough to play finals. It's not going to be easy for them though. They're going to be scrapping. You look back to early season last year, they played back-to-back games over in South Australia against Adelaide and Port Adelaide, and won them both. So at that point, they looked like they were a really good team. Yes, their back half of the season was pretty average, with quite a few losses and a couple bad losses. Like they won against Fremantle in about round 10 or 11, might have been round 12, was terrible. There's no doubt about it. There's no excuse for it. But their best is still going to be good enough to compete with anyone. So don't rule them out. Bulldogs, pretty much ditto. They've got some injury concerns, which has dropped them down on my ladder predictions. No Treloar early season. Bond's now got a sore calf. I would expect that he will still be playing first game, no doubt about it. But yeah, there's just a few injury concerns that are starting to weigh up on this Bulldogs team. Yes, they look like they've got some decent coverage in depth-wise from players they've recruited over the last couple of years, but it's still going to be really tough for them. They obviously just snuck in... I say just snuck into the 8. They finished 6th on the ladder, I think, last year, didn't they? They had a home final and they blew it. They're a funny team. If they get confidence, they're unbeatable, almost. The thing is, will they be able to get that confidence and continuity in their lineups? Because they've got injuries early, but if they start getting those players back and get some form into them and confidence, then their back half of the season could be really, really good. St Kilda. St Kilda. Another team that should be good enough for finals, but at the same time, there's just a few concerns I have with them. mainly their game style. I want to see more attacking from them than we have seen. I get Ross is a defensive coach. I get that it kind of has worked for him historically. But the thing is, without having that ability to attack, limits your ability if you are down. So you look at the best teams over the last few years. Sydney last year, okay, they didn't win the Premiership, but let's ignore that. They were really good through the home and away season. But they weren't dominating games for 120 minutes. They were staying competitive in games for 85 minutes and having 30 minutes of absolute domination. 2023, Collingwood did exactly the same. It's just, you need to be able to have that gear switch where you step it up a notch and you attack and put them to the sword, basically. It's what the best teams have done over the last couple of years. So St Kilda don't have that gear change, I don't think. I haven't seen it yet over the last few years. Maybe they have it now. But that's something that I'll need to see before I'm convinced that this team can be competitive deep into September. That gear switch. Just to turn it on. Because that is what the best teams do. Even Brisbane did it last year. You look at it. Elimination final against Carlton. They put them to the sword in that first quarter and a half. And then just went out. That was it. GWS, they were down by 43 points. Flipped the switch, ran over the top of them. So, you don't need to win a game for all 120 minutes. You need to stay with them for 80 minutes and beat them in one quarter. Absolutely demolish them in the other quarter, and you can win a premiership from that. 16th, North Melbourne. I think they improve. Do they improve on the ladder? I don't know. I think they need 6+ wins this year. I think they're certainly capable of 6+ wins this year. It's not an easy season for them, but they've added some experience, and I think whatever it does eventuate this year will only help them going into 2026 and beyond. So they've got some absolute gun young talent. Now there's a few senior players come in that will help them across the board. I think it can only help them. So look for improvement. I don't think they're going to be good enough to jump into the finals race. I can see them perhaps up to about 10 wins. If they got 10 wins, that would be a massive plus for them here. But I think they need to aim for at least 6. Kind of the same story for the Eagles. For some reason I didn't write West Coast Eagles. I just put West Coast. But ignore that. They are a team that also has added a little bit of experience around their team. They obviously had probably a little bit more experience than North Melbourne anyway. I'm excited to see how Harley Reid's progressed. Yes, there was a lot of hype about him last year, but I think it was all justified in all honesty. Not too often does a first-year player come into the competition and just do what he did in their first season. The way he just pushes people off, the way he runs, carries, breaks lines, he's a game changer, there's no doubt about it. I don't think we'll see West Coast rocket up the ladder this year, but kind of similar to North Melbourne. If they can get 6 or more wins this year, that's positive. It's probably where they're aiming. If they can get more than 6 wins, that would be huge. Anywhere up to 10. Above 10 would be above anyone's expectations, I reckon. And then the final team on the ladder, we're going with the Tigers. Not much to say about these guys. They're young, inexperienced. Yeah, they've got a few senior players, but they just don't have the depth that other teams do. If injuries hit these guys, it's going to be even worse. We just pray that they can stay healthy this year, because injuries hurt them last year. There's going to be some bad days on the football field for them this year. There'll be games where they're competitive throughout. There may even be a win or two. at some point. I don't know where, but there might be. But there are going to be days where it's bad. I can see there being a 200-point victory to somebody at some point, or very close to it. There's going to be some bad days. There's just no way around it. There was a couple bad days for them last year. They had a 90-point loss to the Bulldogs and followed that up the week after with a 100-something point loss to Brisbane. I think there's potential that there's going to be some worse days for them this year. So we jump into now my Premiership selections. I've gone Geelong. I think if they can get through to September in that top 4, they're going to be really hard to beat. Yes, Brisbane did it in the prelim last year, but they're still going to be really tough throughout September if they can make it through in the top 4. Brisbane, there's no reason they don't go deep into September again. They've got a really good team still. They're probably better. They've got a lot more midfield depth than they've ever had. Finding a spot in that midfield is going to be really difficult for the young players this year because there's going to be good players, very good players missing out on selection. Prelim finalists, I've gone Collingwood and Fremantle as we discussed before. I see Collingwood just either being a hit or miss season. At the moment, I've got the faith that it'll be a hit season, but we'll see. And Fremantle, they're just too good not to be good, in my opinion. They have such a great list. One of the better lists in the competition, and I think maybe finally we'll see that eventuate a little bit more throughout the season. Wooden Spoon, I mean, we've already discussed it. Richmond Tigers. I don't think there's any competition for that spot either. In all honesty, I don't see them being able to get more than 1 or 2 wins. And I can't see teams like Kangaroos not getting at least 3 wins. So things can change, things can happen, but it's very hard at the moment to see the Tigers not getting the Wooden Spoon. We'll jump into my Brownlow predictions for 2025 with my top 3 and a smoky. I think Nick Dacos, he's had 3 seasons in the AFL and he's had 2 top 3 finishes in that. In the Brownlow, he's always centre of attention. He's always getting plenty of touches. He's usually using it pretty well. He's involved in most of Collingwood's scores. He's clearly their best player. He's going to be in the thick of it again. If he stays fit and healthy, you'd have to think he'll be certainly right up there. Second, I've got Errol Goulden. He's a... maybe last year wasn't... Well, he wasn't their number 1 midfielder most of the year. It was seen as Isaac Heaney. But historically, throughout his career, he's only young. He's a year or so older than Nick Dacos. But he's polled really well the last couple of seasons. The umpires really notice him. I think he's starting to look like he's getting more centre mid, inside mid time, whereas previously he was a wingman. Throughout last season, he started to venture into the centre bounces a bit more often. I think he could take it to the next level, and he could certainly be someone that goes all the way to a Brownlow, because I think by the end of this year he will be seen clearly as Sydney's number 1 midfielder. There's going to be maybe a little bit more pressure on him in terms of Chad Warner could be leaving at the end of this season, so he'll have to take up that mantle even more. But even if Warner did leave, the Sydney midfield would be fine, because Callum Mills could just slot straight back in. So yeah, I have him there. Bontempelli, I think the most overlooked player in Brownlow. He has had a runner-up finish, I think. He's polled okay, but like last year he got nothing from the umpires. Ed Richards-Treloar did take a lot of votes from him last year. I think with them out this year, maybe he'll be noticed a bit more. Early season, we'll see, but I certainly think he's too good not to be noticed. It does concern me that he'll probably play a bit more forward time this year. He will kick goals when he goes forward, but will the umpires notice that? We'll see. And my smoking is the Hornbag, Jason Horne-Francis. I think this year he will be Port Adelaide's number 1 midfielder. He's obviously historically been someone that they swing forward a fair bit when they need a goal. And look, that's fine. It won't hurt his chances, I don't think. I think he's someone that could possibly this season average 28 disposals a game and 1.5 goals a game. I could see him kicking 30 goals this season quite easily, as well as having a big amount of disposals. There's always been question marks about his tank and stuff like that. I have no concerns. I genuinely believe that this guy this year will have an insanely good season. So watch out for him in 2025. I think we're going to have a big season from all four of those players. Next up, we're going to Coleman Medal predictions. For my number one pick, I kind of went a bit boring, I guess, with Charlie Curnow, two-time Coleman Medal winner, runner-up last year. There's not much more to say about him. He's obviously got injury concerns at the moment, which kind of does hurt that Coleman chance. But when he's on the park, when he's fit, he kicks goals and he can kick big bags. So if you want to win the Coleman, you kind of have to have at least the ability to kick some big bags at some point. And he's someone that he should be kicking well over 50 goals this season and every season that he plays. So he's my number one pick at the moment. I've got Ben King in second. Certainly not one of the more favoured people in the tipping to become Coleman medalist this year, but I just think if Gold Coast get on a run and start playing some good football and consistent football and keep winning, he's someone that's going to kick well over 50 goals. I can see him kicking 65 this season. If the Gold Coast Suns are good and getting the ball to him well, I see him as a genuine chance to kick a lot of goals. So that's where I'm at with him. It could be a terrible selection, but I think last year he showed enough that he's good enough to kick a lot of goals. Josh Tracy next. He'd probably be slightly higher on my list, but he does have Jaya Miss up there with him as well, taking some goals away from him. They're both really good goal kickers. I think Tracy showed last year that he's probably more likely to kick your 50 plus goals in a season, but I certainly would expect him to be very close. And Jaya Miss wouldn't be too far behind him, I don't reckon, this year. If they both stay fit, Fremantle play as well as I and many people expect them to, they'll both be high up there. Jeremy Cameron, a little bit different than most for key forwards, but he's someone that does what he does really well and sometimes gets under the radar with kicking. He always kicks a couple and then he'll go and kick 5 or 6 without anybody noticing in a space of a half of football. So there's always that ability for him, so watch out for him. Jesse Hogan I've got 5th. He was last year's Coleman medalist. If he clunks them like he did last year, he'll win the Coleman again this year. His one-on-one ability last year was so far above everybody else in the AFL, and he kicks straight in front of goal. So I'm not ruling him out by any stretch of the imagination. There's some other good players as well that I've completely left off this list. One such player is Jake Waterman. I just don't know if West Coast win enough games for him this year, but we'll see. See how he goes with that, I guess. Jumping into the next one, we got the Rising Star predictions. Who would know about this? It's been chaos already with some rookies and injuries and the such. But I've got Levi Ashcroft as my number 1. He's just shown already for Brisbane that he's going to be starting in their team straight away, and he's going to get plenty of touches. He's going to kick goals. He gets to come into a Brisbane midfield that's really, really good anyway, so he can just be that extra player. He doesn't need to carry the load. He doesn't need to have 25 touches a game. So he can kind of just play his own game, and I think that will benefit him hugely. Josh Smiley, he's starting injured for Richmond, but I think once he's fit, he will be playing. He's someone that can average over 20 touches a game. He's going to get plenty of opportunity in this Tigers lineup, so watch out for him. Sid Draper for Adelaide, I can see him having a really good season as well. Once again, that Adelaide midfield's pretty strong. It's not Brisbane level, but it's still pretty good. Jordan Dawson, Saligo. I can see Sid Draper getting plenty of opportunities at some point this year. He'll probably they will be aiming to get him 15-ish games, I reckon. He's someone that can get plenty of disposals. He looks good with the ball, so watch out for him to do well in the Rising Star. Isaac Kako is one that there's a lot of hype about, especially after his pre-season game the other day where he kicked 4 goals. I don't think he will, but he's someone that could pop up. If he kicks 30, 35 goals this season and rejuvenates this Essendon forward line, he could well be in this Rising Star conversation. So just a little smoky pick there. And Sam Lawler, another Tigers midfielder. I don't think he's quite as eye-catching, I guess, as Smilly in terms of getting high possession counts and stuff like that. I see him as someone that's probably this season going to average like 15, 16 touches, but get forward and kick 1 to 2 goals a game as well. So if he's playing all season long, he's going to be competitive in this Rising Star just because he will get plenty of opportunity. He will go forward. He will kick goals. So don't rule him out by any stretch of the imagination. He was number 1 draft pick for a reason. And now we're just going to go through my top 50 players heading into the season 2025. If you haven't been following along on my TikTok, I have been doing these day by day. Each day we release the next one. So you're getting a sneak peek at the top 6 ahead of TikTok today. But here they are in 50th. We've got Connor Rose. He's a gun midfielder. 49, Cam Rayner. He's someone that plays mainly general forward. And look, it's unlikely that he's going to get much midfield time. He'll be a relief midfielder. But with the amount of midfield depth they have now, I just don't see it happening. So he's going to become that high half forward role. But if he can average close to 20 touches and more than a goal a game, then that's pretty solid for him. Barras at 48. Sam Darcy, 47. He could take over the game. He's showing already in pre-season. Again, last year, he's just so tall in that forward line. Gets his arms out there, he marks them. He kicks pretty straight most of the time. He's going to be a concern for many defences over the next 5 to 10 years, there's no doubt. Sam Flanders from Gold Coast. Jordan Dawson from Adelaide. I think we see an even better season from him than he had last year. McGovern first, sorry. One of the best key defenders in the competition. Waterman, his season last year was outstanding. Can he back it up and do it 2 years in a row? That's where we're at the moment. I don't see any reason he can't. Tim English at 42. 2 years ago was top 3 ruckman in the competition. Last year he dropped off a little bit. I hope that he can bounce back again this year a little bit. Tyson Stingle, 41. An absolute menace around the goals. Give him any space and he will destroy you. Number 40, Harry Sheasel, someone that could be top 10 by the end of this season, there's no doubt about it. He gets plenty of the ball, he uses it really well. He's listed there as a general defender. He will be a full-time midfielder this year, so it'll be exciting to see how he adjusts to that new full-time role in the midfield. Josh Tracy, as I mentioned before when we're talking Coleman, has the potential to be one of the best key forwards in the competition. So I've got him 39. 38 is Tom Stewart. Gets plenty of it, uses it well. There's no doubt about that. James Sicily at 37. Listed as a key defender. He will play more as a general defender, I think, this year. Look for him to get... he won't be on the 1, 2 or 3 tall forwards, I don't reckon. He'll be probably on the 4th tallest forward, and they'll look to use him as a running backman a lot of the time. They like getting the ball in his hands, so look for that. He also will swing forward when they need goals late in games or late in quarters. And I can even see him running a bit more midfield time as well, maybe on the wing or something at times. 36, Jacob Wedering, one of the best key defenders in the competition. Arguably was the best last year. I didn't quite have him. I think I had him second or third best tall defender, but he's right up there. Hayden Young, one of the best midfielders. Part of an absolute gun Fremantle midfield. He's starting the season injured, which is a little bit disappointing for him, but his attacking football is outstanding, so look for a massive season from him. Horn Francis, 34. As I said about him before, I can see him being their number one midfielder this year. Kieran Briggs, number 33, had an outstanding season last year. I fully expect him to have an even better year this year. Brian Myers, last year maybe slightly down on his previous couple years. His ability and his ball use is outstanding. They love to give him the ball because they know when he's got it, he will hit a target most of the time. Nick Martin is listed as a general defender. He's someone that probably won't be a general defender this year. He started mainly forward last week in their pre-season game. I think that's a good role for him, in all honesty. He's an attacking player, and playing there /wing / going back at times, I think he could have an outstanding season 2025. Next up, we've got 30 is Isaac Rankin. At his best, is a top 10 player, I think. He's an absolute gun. He uses the ball well, he runs, he's fast. So look for him. If he stays fit and healthy, he could have an outstanding season. Chad Warner, potentially his last season for the Swans. I expect another big season from him. As I've mentioned before, I think Gordon's probably going to be their best midfielder this year. Chad Warner could be their second. We'll see. Ben King, I think, is going to be... he's one of my top picks for the Coleman Medal. So I see him having a massive season last year. His goals per game last 50-odd games that he's played, or last 30 games, is really outstanding. So I can see him having a big year. Harris Andrews... great season last year, great season the year before. You know what you're going to get from Harris, and this year will be no different. Zach Merritt has always been Essendon's, well, not always, but has been Essendon's best midfielder for multiple years now. He gets the job done week in, week out, so he will again. 25 is Zach Butters. Typically, last year was Port Adelaide's best midfielder. I think Horn Francis probably passes him this year, in all honesty, if they give Horn Francis the opportunities. But, all three of Port's main midfielders are great. 24, Sam Collins. He was the best key defender in my rankings last year, had an outstanding season. 23, Tristan Xerri, one of the best ruckmen, arguably the second best ruckman last year, second or third best ruckman. Had a great season. Expect much the same from him. He gets lots of clearances. He's a big body. He runs, gets around the ground really well. Jai Newcomb, outstanding season last year. He was Hawthorn's best midfielder. I kind of expect him to also be Hawthorn's best midfielder this year. He's going to have a little bit of competition there, but he gets plenty of the ball. He uses it really well. He tackles hard. He's a really good player. Luke Ryan, a good running backman, uses the ball great, gets plenty of it. Watch for another big season from him. Number 20, Cozzy Pickett, if he can stay on the park, he is someone that can turn a game very quickly. He's dangerous going forward. He plays a lot of midfield time, splits his time between midfield and forward, and it doesn't matter where he is going to damage you if he gets the football. Christian Petrarca, one of the best midfielders in the competition. 18, Toby Green. Last year dropped off on a little bit on his 2023 form. Forgot what year we were looking at. But still was really good, and I expect him to be almost at his best again this year. Jeremy Cameron, he can get 20 plus touches. He can kick 5 goals a game. He's one of the best key forwards. He's not like most key forwards, but he will get the job done. 16 was Matt Rao. Gold Coast hard-hitting, clearance-getting, contested football winning midfielder. Look for him to have an outstanding season. Dylan Moore at 15. He was great from Hawthorn last year. Arguably, him and Newcomb were their best two players. A lot of people probably say Newcomb was their best. I had Dylan Moore as their best player last year, and I expect him to do great again this year. Max Holmes at 14 probably plays a bit more midfield time this year. We'll see how that plays out for him. Errol Goulden, 13. As I said, he is a smoky, or he's one of my picks for the Brownlow. I think he's going to have an outstanding season. Lachie Neale, 2-time Brownlow medalist. He was outstanding last year. Last year, I think, was one of his best seasons, if not his best season he's ever put together. I don't think there's going to be as much need for it this year. They've got a really good midfield that's getting stronger and stronger. Both Ashcroft boys. So Lachie Neale, he'll still be an absolute gun. I still think he will be their best midfielder. I just don't think he will need to do as much as he did last year. Rowan Marshall, a lot of people had him as the number 1 ruckman last year. I had him as number 2, and that's where I've got him again this year. He's an absolute gun ruckman. Look for a big season from him. Now the top 10, Jesse Hogan first up. Obviously, Coleman medalist from last year. The best one-on-one contested mark in the competition. Look for him. If he lives up to last year's exploits, he's going to be another big season for him, and GWS will have another great season. Number 9 is Max Gawn. Got him as the best ruckman in the competition. He's a 7-time All-Australian. He's pretty much done everything he can. He's a Premiership player. He's their captain. He's an absolute gun. Back onto GWS, because as I have mentioned before, they have a lot of top-end talent, and right here they've got a key forward, a midfielder, and a key defender all in the top 10. Number 8 is Tom Green. Bit higher than most people probably have him. Last year I had him ranked 18th. I expect a massive season from him this year. Sam Taylor, he dropped off last year. There's not actually in game-by-game sense, but he missed a lot of football. He had concussion, a really bad concussion that he missed a couple of weeks with, and then he had another really horrific injury for himself that he missed a bit more football. So look for him to have a really good season back at his fighting fit best, I guess. 6 is Isaac Heaney. He was number 2 last year. I don't see him living up to last year's numbers, but at the same time, he could well do. He had an amazing season last year. Number 5 is Charlie Curnow. I do think he's the best key forward in the competition when fit. He probably would have won the Coleman last year if he didn't get injured late in the season. If he can stay fit and healthy, he's going to be really damaging this year. Caleb Sarong, number 4. Started last year absolutely insanely good. Did drop off at times, but he's one of the best midfielders. Look for him to dominate clearances and work in tandem with Brayshaw and Hayden Young really well. Paddy Cripps, 2-time Brownlow medalist, including the highest ever tally in a Brownlow last year. He's one of the best midfielders in the competition, there's no doubt about it. I have him 3rd. I think the other 2 have a higher ceiling this year than Paddy Cripps does, but we'll see how that plays out. Number 2, Nick Dacos. What we've seen from him already is outstanding. I see a massive ceiling though. I see the ability to go even bigger for him, so potentially a massive season coming his way. And number 1, as has been the case for the start of last year all the way through the year, end of last year, my number 1 player is Marcus Bontempelli. I think he's the best player in the competition at the moment. What he can do is what not many other people can do. He's tall, he gets forward when he needs to, he's dominant in the midfield, he covers the ground, he gets plenty of the football, he does it all. So Marcus Bontempelli finishes the pre-season as my number 1 ranked player. That's everything I have for you in 2025 season predictions. I'll get the ladder back up. No, that's not the ladder. This one's the ladder. just to wrap up the video, thanks for tuning in. This has been the 9th episode of the podcast for 2025. I appreciate you all for being here. If you've stuck it out, make sure you share it with your friends. Hit that like button. Jump in the comments below and let me know where I went horribly wrong with my predictions. Whether it's the ladder, whether it's the Brownlow, whether it's the top 50, whatever. Jump in the comments, let me know. Let me know what the sound's like, because people have been telling me it's too quiet lately, so jump in there and do that as well. If you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, I appreciate you. Don't forget to check out all the videos on YouTube. There's season previews for every team. Next week, there'll be 2 more episodes of the podcast. First one on Monday will be a review of all the preseason games. Thursday's episode will be our Round 0 opening round preview, previewing all 4 matches coming up to start the season. And then it's 2 episodes every week all the way through to the end of the AFL season. So much football coming your way. Thanks for giving me your time. I'll be back, as I said, on Monday with that. I'll be back on the YouTube with season previews. There's still 2 more teams to go, West Coast and Western Bulldogs. Thanks again, and I'll catch you on the next one.